Good day, Harlem and Harlems of the world. I'm Terri Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. And as many of you know, Harlem Network News is a media platform. We started at the onset of COVID, and we're still here. We consider ourselves an essential service. We had to jump in the deep water and get started, something we had really planned for. My background is in media. But when Black folks were walking around Harlem and reference to COVID saying, I'm Black, I can't get it, that's when we knew, like, okay, our media is not really telling our story and servicing the people. So that's where we are. And Harlem Network News, we are about knowledge is power. We are about engaging the community with this information now that they're armed, and it's definitely a call to action. So on this Memorial Day weekend, first off and foremost, you all can't see all my African attire, but we want to salute Dance Africa, which is, I'm not even sure how many years it is, but we want to salute Dance Africa, which is happening in BAM this weekend. We encourage everybody to go out there. We salute the ancestor Chuck Davis that brought it into fruition, and we salute elders now, Abdel Salam and Diane Salam, Sister Diane, Queen Diane, for really keeping it going. So get out there. They got afternoon shows, evening shows, vending. Their company, Forces of Nature, is in the forefront. So that's what we want to say. That's how we represent. So just wanted to share that with folks, and I believe it'll be going on through Monday at BAM. But we've got some really critical things going on here. We've got a primary election that's going to happen on the 25th of June. We got early voting on June 15th to the 23rd. They're mail-in ballots, but we will be doing a separate show just to make sure you're clear on all that. But we've been really focusing on the candidates for state assembly right here in Harlem. I believe it's District 70. Our illustrious Inez Assembly member Inez Dickens is stepping down, retiring, if you will. You never can retire from the Harlem community. So I know she's going to be continuing, but she is passing on the baton. So we have folks running, and just so people know, we have 5 candidates. So we got choices, and we need to choose carefully who's going to represent us best. Because definitely in Harlem, we have Central Harlem and the outer sphere. We have a lot going on. We have a lot to address. So the candidates that we have running, and not in order, of how you should vote, but we definitely have Jordan Wright. We have Shauna Harmongarth. We have Craig Schley, and we have Maria Ordonez. And last but not least, we have Joushua Clennon. And we're going to start with Joshua. Joshua, introduce yourself to Harlem and Harlems of the world, and tell us who you are and whose you are on Harlem Network News. Thank you. Okay, Joshua, I believe you're muted. So unmute. Let's get it going.
Let's go.
All
Good
right.
morning.
Love it.
My name is Joushua Clennon. I'm running for New York State Assembly here in the 70th District of Harlem, a community that I've called home my entire life. My family has been in Harlem since the turn of the 20th century. This is a community that's nurtured me, that's educated me, and it's where I'm raising my family to get today as a father and a husband. My journey in public service began in tragedy, losing my father at a very young age to gun violence. He was actually shot and killed while he was holding me in his arms.
My
And my
God.
miraculous survival from that event forged my commitment to give back to our community, and that was carried me from graduating from Penn State University to coming back to our community. And for the past 10 years, I've been deeply engaged in public service, serving on a community board, organizing events to curb gun violence and promote civic engagement, and also advocating against the displacement of Harlem residents and for more affordable housing. For the past 8 years, I've been working in the trenches of the affordable housing industry, managing low income housing cooperatives to make sure that people in our community, our seniors, our working families, can maintain truly affordable housing and also preserve generational wealth, which I think is critical for Harlem going forward. So I plan to leverage my diverse experiences in the New York State Assembly to bring about the transformative change that we've all been yearning for. And I'm looking forward to answering your questions. And I encourage
Right.
everybody to join us on this journey and follow us at Joushua Clennons on social media and visit our website, joshuaclennon.com.
Okay, well, thank you, Joshua. It's an honor to have you on here. Josh and I served on the community board 10 for about 10 years. So we were in those trenches with our sleeves rolled up. And I kind of think you've answered why you're running, but what do you bring to the table that sets you apart from others? What do you see that you, Joshua Clennon, bring to the table, and why folks should vote for you? What can you do that others can't do? What's your perspective on how you're going to hit a home run for Harlem and District 70? Thank you.
Absolutely. I think there's a few things. I think one, if you view the candidate forums that we've had two so far. I think a lot of people would agree that, I'm the only candidate that's knowledgeable on all the issues facing our community. And this is not just from the work and service that I've done in our community. It's also because these are my lived experiences. I lost a parent to gun violence. I grew up in housing with housing insecurity. I went to public schools in our district. I went to Frederick Douglass Academy.
All right.
So, I'm not somebody who just came out of the blue. I've been a member of our community for a long time. My family has been here for a long time, and I'm raising my child here with my wife. So I'm deeply committed to our community and making sure that we truly address these issues. We really bring about the change that we've been yearning for, and that we're proactive in our policy making as a community, right? Not just being reactive, but taking a long term view to really make Harlem a community where all individuals can thrive, whether you're a senior, whether you're a working family, whether you're a young professional, or whether you're a young person in our community, trying to get an education and do the right things. On top of that, I think I'm the only candidate that actually has a track record in leadership positions within our community. As you know, Terri, when we were on the community board, I
Mhm.
served as the treasurer and the chair of the district needs.
Yes.
And that was very
It's
critical
powerful.
in helping us to be able to advocate for resources for our community to improve our parks, get additional funding for our schools, for our cultural institutions, and things of that nature. So I'm going into this position already with a knowledge base in terms of how to effectively work with a municipal budget. And that is very critical for the state assembly because we'll be working with the state budget, right? A state budget that is larger than a third of countries in the world, right? So we need to make sure that we're sending representatives that are going to be intentional, that are going to be able to fight for resources for Harlem within the New York State budget.
Okay, well, thank you, Josh, for sharing that, because I think and I know that the sentiments here in Harlem, and I'm Terri Wisdom, this is Harlem Network News, and I'm here starting our individual candidates presentation with Joshua Clennon, who is running for State Assembly, yes, State Assembly, right here in the 70th district. Josh, a couple of things. What encompasses the 70th district, if you will, please? Thank you. What are the parameters? Who can go
Absolutely.
in the 70th district? And what does the 70th district control? Thank you.
So the 70th district is the heart of Harlem, right? It encompasses all of Central Harlem. The district boundaries go from 110th Street to 141st Street. It goes from as far as Fifth Avenue. Some parts of the district dip down to Park Avenue, and it goes all the way towards the west side. Past Morningside Park, all the way down to Broadway and Riverside. So it's all of Central Harlem. Um, West Harlem is in that district as well, and also parts of East Harlem are in that district.
Okay, thank you for that. And just in terms of like who's in the district, I mean, is the district primarily Black, African American, Africans, those of, Hispanic descent, white? What comprises the makeup of the district? And what are some of the key issues and concerns that you see? You've kind of gone over, some of the things that you've addressed, housing, but what are really the key issues? Because honestly, folks are frustrated. It's a war, it's a battle every day to survive. And Harlem Network News, as a media person, media partner, sponsor, it's overwhelming. So who's in the district? Thank you.
Yeah, so our district is very diverse. As you know, predominantly the district is African American, blacks. We also have a strong Hispanic, Latino population. We also have a strong, white population and a growing Asian population within the community as well. So, our district really is a melting pot. We have a lot of different cultures. We represent the African diaspora across the world. We have people from West Africa. We have people from the Caribbean. We have people who have come here, from the South and other parts of the country. Families that they came to Harlem during the Great Migration. So our Harlem is, as David Dinkins once said, a beautiful mosaic. And we have a lot of culture and history here, and it's critical that we fight for affordable housing to make sure that the people who've contributed to this culture and this history can continue to live here, can continue to grow here, thrive here, and raise their families here.
Okay, so thank you for painting that picture. I love the phrase mosaic, and God bless our David Dinkins, straight out of Harlem and served for many, many years. And if you don't know who that is, Harlem Network News, I'm giving you some homework. Do your research. Okay,
Absolutely.
do your research. But I mean, what I see right here, housing is a key issue for sure. I mean, the houses are not affordable. And when they build housing and say it's affordable, affordable to who? Because it really
Mm.
doesn't represent the mean income. I see not so much crime, but just not the best living conditions. We have some issues and concerns, in terms of cleanup, garbage, the appearance of the streets. I was walking down one street, coming from work, and I won't walk down that street again. There were rats like just running up and down. And I know we have Mayor, Adams, who's got a rat czar. But I mean, the conditions. And the other real concern that we have is um, that we have more drug treatment centers in Harlem
Mm.
than anywhere else in the whole city. We got 70% of the drug treatment centers. This is an issue. This is a concern. This impacts our quality of life. It impacts our youth. It impacts our family because that also has to do with the mental illness that's happening. With the event of cannabis being legal, we have more illegal cannabis shops or smoke shops or whatever you want to call them in Harlem, and they are selling to children. Um, and we have homelessness, joblessness, or people that are working. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's almost like it's a modern day slavery, in
Mm.
terms of what we're dealing with in our community. And we have separate but not equal education going on here in Harlem. I mean, District 5, which comprises Central Harlem, is 99.99999% Black and brown kids. And asylum seekers who are here in this city, they're busing them up from the Roosevelt Hotel to our district, which is already stressed. So, that's just the top of the iceberg. So, how, as a state legislator, can you do something about all these things? What are the perimeters
You
of
just throwing me in the gauntlet, Terry. You ask about
yeah,
every single issue in our
yes.
community in
So
one
hit
question.
one. Hit
Right, so
one.
let me try to address all, because no, those are all critical issues. I think first and foremost with affordable housing, um, we have as a community, um, and I would say not even as a community, it's really our elected representation have not negotiated in our interests when it comes to development, rezonings, and affordable housing. Because, we know this as people who have sat on the community board, where developers have come to our community board with rezoning proposals, and we're saying, this is ridiculous. Like, only 20% affordable housing, and all the affordable housing units are studio apartments. Like, who did you speak to? Who did you run this by? And then those same developers will tell us, we spoke to your elected officials.
Right.
So it's like we need people with actual experience in affordable housing that's going to make sure that we're negotiating for the community and not for developers, right? So that we don't continue to get the short end of the stick. And we also have to legislate, right? The housing programs that are used to develop affordable housing, because there are subsidies, there are tax benefits in place, because otherwise private developers would just make market rate housing, right? So we have these programs in place to incentivize them to make affordable housing, but the programs overwhelmingly favor the developers. They don't provide enough community benefits, they don't provide enough affordability, and the affordable units that are being created, we saw just 70% of affordable housing units in this past year were all studio and single bedroom apartments. We also need affordable housing for our families. We need 2 and 3 bedroom apartments so that people can continue to live here, they can grow here, and they can raise their families here in our community. And that's a pressing need that I want to address through legislation by reintroducing new programs in which we can build affordable housing,
Sounds good. Sounds good.
revitalizing programs such as Michelama and HDFCs, which is one of the last forms of permanent affordable housing and home ownership that we have in our city. So we need to not just preserve those forms of housing, we need to create more of them, create more opportunities for the next generation coming up in our community. Now the other issue that you wanted me to address was the quality of life and the substance use and oversaturation of addiction treatment facilities in Harlem. This is an issue that I've worked closely with in our community. I advocated for this on our community board and also worked with the Greater Harlem Coalition, Sean Hill, Sedaria Ashbury, who have
Okay.
founded that organization, specifically to tackle this issue, right? So, we've had so many meetings with the heads of Oasis, which is the commission that regulates this, and also, organized rallies to really get our legislators involved, right? So we've been successful in getting Congressman Adriano to really, pull up his sleeves and really start tackling this issue. And he's been doing tremendous work in terms
Okay.
of pushing federal legislation and also working with the mayor to bring about the changes that we want to see. But at the state legislature, we have an opportunity to do so much more, right? Because it is a state agency that governs and regulates these facilities. And 20% of the facilities, New York City's entire capacity right now has been lumped in Harlem, right? And it's primarily because other communities don't want these facilities in their backyards, right? But when we look at the facts, right, we look at this from a public health perspective. The opioid epidemic and overdose epidemic is affecting all communities across our state, across our country, in every county. We have thousands of people that are coming from Westchester, Staten Island to Harlem every single day to utilize these facilities because they don't have access to them at all in the counties in which they live, right? So from a public health perspective, this is a public health policy failure, and we need to make sure that we're breaking up these concentrations that exist in communities like Harlem and the South Bronx, and dispersing and evenly spreading out these facilities across our entire state. Now, what would that do? That would make sure that people who live in, Westchester, Staten Island can get care where they live so that they don't have to come to Harlem, right? So that we don't have this over concentration that we see playing out on our streets every day. And secondly, that also addresses what we see every day, as well as the drug trafficking around these facilities. When the facilities are so heavily condensed and concentrated in one area, what you see is a proliferation of drug trade in that area, because you have people selling illegal substances that are preying on a very vulnerable population that they know are going to be there every single day. And if we can break these facilities up, we also address that issue as well, which also results in better care for these individuals, right? They're able to actually
Thank
go
you.
to their programs and get the treatment that they need, and hopefully they get on a road to long-term recovery, right? So we really have to look at this from a public health perspective, and that'll help us be able to really move policy at the state level that'll break up the concentration here in Harlem and improve, the lives of residents in our community, but also improve care for the people who need it the most. In addition to that, education.
Thank you.
Education.
That's my whoo. Thank you.
Education is critical for our community. It's critical in terms of making sure that our community can benefit from the new global economy that we're living in and all the emerging industries that are coming about, right? When we talk about artificial intelligence, or even, industries such as cannabis, it's all about preparing people to be able to enter these new marketplaces so that they can be pioneers in these new career lanes and new industries, right? And obviously that starts with our youth, making sure that, as state legislators, we're working with the New York State Board of Regents to make sure that we're shifting the policy of our public education so that we can have more vocational education for our young people, because there are a lot of high paying jobs nowadays where you don't even necessarily need to go to college for a 4-year degree. I went to college. I encourage everybody to do it, but it's not for everyone. There are, you can take boot camps and certification courses and, programming, AI, and different things, and still be able to deliver, a 6-figure income for your family. And that's tremendous. We have to take advantage of that, and we have to tap into that. And if we do so, we can make Harlem, a pipeline for tech, right? We can become one of the next tech hubs in the Northeast, and do it with our children here, because our children are so talented. They're capable of so much. It's all about presenting the opportunities and getting it to them. So that's something that I want to focus in on with education. And also in terms of our schools, I want to advocate for a community school model, right? That'll deliver more mental health clinicians and, guidance counselors and things of that nature for our young people, to really help them grapple with the trauma that they experience on a daily basis, living in our community. I know I experienced gun violence, even I lost a parent. I saw classmates that I went to school with at Frederick Douglass. One day a student was shot right in front of the school. We all saw it. And there are a lot of kids who grapple with PTSD and trauma in our community, and it never gets unpacked. They never truly get to speak to somebody about it. And then we see this trauma play out on our streets, on our subway systems. And as Frederick Douglass once said, it is much easier to build strong boys than to repair broken men. And that's what we have to do. We have to really address mental health from a young age, and also make sure that we're fighting to expand proactively care for all of the people who are suffering from it currently today in our city, because we're seeing it play out on a daily basis in these news headlines. But what we're not seeing is proactive outreach to get people into mental health care facilities. New York State has actually been closing mental health facilities and attempting to close, hospitals, right? So we have to constantly fight back and push back and make sure that we're fighting for these things within the state budget, so that we get the funding and services that we need, and that people have access to them. And I think all of these things really affect public safety, right? Which is a huge thing for our community. We are a community that has grappled with gun violence and just violent crime in general. And when you look at the root of crime, and you go statistically, when you live in poverty, you are more likely to suffer from depression. You are more likely to suffer from
Absolutely.
anxiety. You are more likely to commit violence. So we have to tackle the root of all of these things, which is economic inequality, right? When you look at the median
Thank
income
you.
in
Thank
Harlem
you.
compared to just the Upper West Side or Upper East Side, which is really only a stone's throw away from our district,
Thank
it's
you.
it's unbelievable, to be quite honest. So we have to make sure that we are giving people in our community the opportunity to thrive, the opportunity to succeed. And that
Mhm.
means higher paying jobs. We're giving them more opportunities to be exposed to these emerging industries where they can create, the more lucrative opportunities for themselves. And also we have to make sure that as a state, we are protecting and expanding benefits for our public service workers. We've seen recently in the state where we've cut benefits for public service workers,
Mm.
with tier 6 and things of that nature. And now we're struggling to hire teachers. We have a teacher shortage in New York City. We have to hire
Absolutely.
18,000 more teachers over the next 5 years to keep up with classroom restriction. We have a nursing shortage in our state. And so we're struggling to fill these positions because we're cutting benefits, and people are finding that they can move to other states, make the same amount of money, have a lower cost of living, and just generally live a better life, right? So we have to address that. In our state government, we have to expand benefits for our workers, making sure that people, our working class citizens, are essential workers that, just a few years ago, we saw how much we relied upon them during the COVID pandemic. We have to make sure that they can continue to live here, that they can continue to grow here, thrive here, raise their families here. And we can only do that by expanding benefits and addressing affordability in our city.
Yes, so that addresses a lot. What are you actually inheriting? Um, walking, or would you inherit walking into the state senate? I know there's the bill on the board, fair
State
share.
Assembly.
Yeah, yeah, state assembly. Yeah, let's get it straight. Okay, what are you actually inheriting? Thank you.
What do you mean by inheriting?
Like what bills are on the table? What has Assembly Member Inez Dickens dealt with? And what are you going to inherit that you've got to try to clean up?
Well, coming into the state assembly, I'd be a new representative, right? So it would basically really be a fresh start for our community to really bring about a new brand of representation. There are a number of bills that are currently in the state legislature that I would like to support and advance. One of them is a public banking bill that which would help you know increase access to capital for disadvantaged communities like ours. You see, like banks like Wells Fargo, 75% of their Black applicants are denied mortgages. So having a public banking system would really be the solution to that, to make it easier for people of all incomes, backgrounds, etc., to be able to access capital so that they can create, generational wealth for their families. In addition to that, I want to support tenant protections. Our current assembly person, has not been in favor of bills such as good cause. Those are bills that I want to support and also strengthen. That bill actually passed this section, and it basically prevents a landlord from simply evicting you just because your lease expired and they no longer want you to be a resident, right? And we see that happen all the time in our community. A new person may have purchased the building that you live in, or HPD may have taken possession of your building and transferred it to a new owner, and the new owner, management, etc., your lease expires and they say they're not going to renew your lease, and they take you to eviction court, on a holdover proceeding, and you're evicted. There's nothing you can do. You can't get a one-shot deal. There's no way around it, right? We've seen that being used as a tool to displace residents, long-time residents of our community. So good cause eviction basically gives protections for that. And it also protects our small homeowners, right? Because it doesn't apply to buildings that are below 10 units. So our small homeowners and our brownstones, they don't have to worry about people abusing the law and squatting, because they can't afford, if one person is in their building and not paying rent, they can lose their entire property. So it also takes into consideration their unique situations. So I think it's great legislation, and we have to make sure that we're protecting it. In addition to that, like I said, I want to really introduce new legislation. I want to be proactive in legislating for our community. We have not been a community that has had a reputation of carrying and passing a lot of bills in our state. So I really want to really change that narrative and make sure that we're working in lockstep with the community, right? That means having forums about the policy that we're thinking about, the legislation that we're having, really giving real-time updates on our legislation, telling folks where it's at, what votes do we need to get this bill passed? How can they get involved? How can they come and lobby with us in Albany? A lot of residents in our community, they tell me, when we're knocking on doors, they say, how come these politicians, they never come? They come around when it's election time, but we never see them any other time, right? And that's the narrative that I truly want to change, because I think when we're trying to pass legislation, when we're trying to pass transformative change for our community, we need to be just as active in spreading that awareness and getting folks involved as we are when we're trying to get elected to these seats. Even more so, it's more important, because if you don't build that public awareness around these bills, around these issues, such as like the New York Heat Act, which was to make sure that we get we're creating climate resiliency for our city and our state, and just giving people who are in need access to cooling centers and things that they need to stay cool during the summer, because as with climate change, cities are only getting warmer. We've had record high temperatures this year and the year before, and we need to make sure that our most vulnerable populations are taken care of. So that's another bill that has tremendous support in assembly that I want to help support and make sure that we get it passed in the next session. So these are all the things that I'm committed to doing, and it's really about, at the end of the day, bringing about a new brand of representation. I have a lot of respect for Inez Dickens and all our past elected officials who have devoted a period of their life to serving our community. But I'm here to really bring about a new brand of representation, a new chapter for our community, where we are proactive, engaging our community, and making sure that Harlem works for every single one of us, our working families, our seniors, and our young professionals. Terri, you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Joshua Clennon, for being able to answer that difficult question. And I like the fact, I'm Terri Wisdom, this is Harlem Network News, and we are dealing with our candidates today for state assembly. And as Joshua has expounded on, I mean, what the state does is extremely critical. And also accountability to the public, because a lot of people are just frustrated and they feel that their representatives are acting independently and they're not really having a say, and that in some instances the public officials are not representing the community and they're just moving forward. So we're still here and we are still struggling at every level here in Central Harlem. How do you feel? And this will be like a closing statement. We need to wrap up. But how do you feel you're going to be received um, in the state assembly? How are you going to cut through those who, you push out the bill and then you don't get the support? Because quite frankly, when we looked at the state budget and what really happened, I feel like we lost. you know um the rents are going up. Nothing really happened for education. I mean, we reparations, what's your view on that? They
Mhm.
kind of passed it, but there's going to be a committee. I mean, it's not happening, and we're still suffering and struggling in a modern day slavery here in Central Harlem as far as I'm concerned. Thank you. Separate but not equal education that was passed 70 years ago is not happening. And nobody really cares about the separate. That's how it's all divided up. But the equal, no. So address and let's get your closing statement. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. You know, our campaign slogan is Harlem for the many, not the few, right? Because as I've said a number of times, we're fighting to make sure that everyone in our community feels represented, that everyone in our community has access to the opportunities and resources needed to live, thrive, and grow right here in Harlem. So and that's not something that's just a campaign slogan. That's something that we live by, and it's something that's going to carry us in the state legislature as well, right? Because we need to build coalitions in order to get bills passed, right? And these coalitions have to be diverse because you're working with representatives across the state who represent very different communities from ours sometimes, right? So my approach is always to find common ground where I can work with individuals. Yes, we're not going to always agree 100% of the time, right? But on the issues that we do agree with, and there are many, because across our state we're all grappling with similar issues in terms of affordability, skyrocketing expenses in terms of inflation, in terms of insurance for homes, taxes that are rising, things of that nature. So we have more in common than what divides us. And if we can focus on what we have in common, we can create transformative change for our state and for Harlem. And it's about being open-minded, right? Some people go into these positions and they say, oh, well, I'm a progressive, I'm only going to work with progressives. And then some folks say,
Okay.
oh, well, I'm not progressive, I'm not going to work with progressives, right? And all these progressives and isms, to me, they're just silly, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all Democrats. We have a Democratic majority in New York State, right? That means we have, the state assembly chamber is run by Democrats. Democrats. The state Senate chamber is run by Democrats. We have a Democratic governor, a Democratic mayor. There is no reason why Democrats can't find the issues that we agree on and bring about real solutions and change for our community here in New York State. If we can't do it here in New York State, we can't expect anybody else to do it. We can't expect Joe Biden to do it in the White House or anywhere else, or we can't expect Congress to get it together. We've got to get it together here. We've got to lead the country. The Democratic Party across the entire country looks to New York. They look to see what we're doing here, and we are the standard bearers, right? We're the gold standard
Okay.
for the Democratic Party across our state, but we have not lived up to that gold standard. And it's
Okay.
past time that we live up to that standard, that we stop, all these sort of silly battles with each other, and we embrace each other as Democrats and really get the job done, right? And make being a Democrat means something again, because there's so much apathy with our politics. People say, what's the difference between Democrats and Republicans? They say, why should I even vote at all? You guys don't do anything, right?
Right.
And until we start actually doing something and start delivering, we're pouring gasoline on that fire, right? And it's sad, because this is how democracy dies. This is how totalitarian governments and authoritarian regimes are able to take over countries. And we see what Trump is trying to do on the right now. He's basically trying to make that a reality in our country. So we have to be cognizant of that. We have to live up to our own standards, and we have to start actually delivering for the people of Harlem and for the people of our state.
Well, thank you, Joushua Clennons, candidate for state assembly. We have a war on our hands. We got a strong fight. Just quick, because I got to move on. This is Harlem Network News. I'm Terri Wisdom. But please confirm, are you officially on the ballot, and what challenges did you face, and what boxing gloves did you put on? Thank you.
Absolutely. So, we actually had two campaigns sort of team up to challenge our ballot status. The Right campaign, who's part of that, Keep Right political machine, and Maria Ordonez, who is, a member of DSA. They sort of worked in tandem to try to knock our campaign off the ballot. I guess they were threatened by the grassroots support that we were building and just how our messaging has been resonating in our community. So they challenged us, 4 times, and 4 times we beat every single one of their challenges. There was a judge who was, appointed to our case after they sued the Board of Elections in the Supreme Court, and that judge, which we now see is clearly a blatant mistake in his order, temporarily removed us off the ballot. So we were able to appeal that decision, and our ballot status is currently in the process of being restored. But we will 100% be on the ballot for our voters in June moving forward. And we count on delivering a true victory for our Harlem community, right? And finally delivering the change that Harlem residents have been yearning for.
Okay, well, thank you for speaking that truth to power. This is Harlem Network News, Terri Wisdom, and we are making sure that the community is informed and engaged, and we look to coming back to you, Joushua Clennon, and doing some deeper dives, because that's what we do. And we are hoping from every level of public officials that small businesses are being supported, that media like Harlem Network News, us, get infused, we get some funding, we get some support, because the media is the message and the message is the media. And also that we get some legislation to make sure that Harlem residents can buy some of these brownstones at a reparations kind of value. So thank you so much, and have a blessed and prosperous day. For whatever, back with never, Marcus Messiah Garvey. So goes Harlem, so goes the world. James Baldwin. Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Don't forget to vote on the primary. Okay.
June 25th.
Let's go.
Voting starts June 15th.
Let's go. Thank you.
Thank you.